So, Alien 3, called by many the destroyer of franchises. I might go on that train depending of the day, but at the same time is a movie that also has some virtues. It's one of those cases of a film that just doesn't seem to fall on either side of the coin of it is very good or very bad. And there are some people that actually even love it as much as the first two movies in the franchise. In my opinion, without giving too much away in this analysis, it is a movie that pleases me in some aspect, but at the same time, like most of Alien fans, it also hurts me for the simple decision of being what it is. A new story that decided to exclude some elements of the series so far. The context of when I watched this movie for the first time, it goes all the way back to the 90s, especially for being broadcast many times here in my country. And as I mentioned in my Alien Resurrection video, the creature Alien scared the shit out of me when I was a kid, and this is the movie that is responsible for that, because it was the only one that I had watched as a kid. I mean, watched covering my eyes, but watched anyway. And even though it was a very bad experience, it was an experience that brings me a lot of nostalgia today, especially because at the same time we had also the Super Nintendo game of Alien 3 that me and my brother and some other friends played a lot here in my house. At the time, Alien 3 also gave me the false impression that this was the franchise with the bald lady. Yes, for being a kid that has never seen a female protagonist bald in any movie, I thought that Ripley was bald in all the movies of the franchise for some reason. Anyway, as a teenager, when I finally decided to fight my fears and I was very curious to really watch the Alien movies, people around me didn't seem to care very much, so I begged my aunt, my brother, my cousins to rent all the Alien movies so I could finally watch them. But nobody wanted to. After all, those are movies that at the time were already considered old, especially because this story takes place in the end of the 90s, turning to the 2000s. And since I didn't have any money in my pocket to go there and rent the movies by myself, I had to wait until one day my brother finally decided, you know what, I really want to rewatch the Alien movies, out of the blue. So there we went and rented the Alien 1, 2, 3, and I already had Alien Resurrection in my home, recorded from the TV on my VHS. By the way, all the movies were rented in VHS, so imagine the nostalgia I'm feeling just for telling this story now. Anyway, I was 13 years old and I finally had the opportunity to watch the whole series in sequence from Alien 1 to Alien 4. And here's my experience. Because I really think my first experience by really watching these movies is very faithful to what most of the audience feels when they watch these movies and their opinions about each one of them. It was afternoon and we watched Alien 1, and everybody knows that this movie takes you into a different kind of vibe of experience. Everything is very hypnotizing on the screen. You feel like you're entering a new world, and a very dark and threatening world with big surprises coming every step of the way. You discover a new creature, new planets, new characters, and all of this culminates in a very explosive and intense ending. An ending that sends you home with the feeling, woof, that was an experience. That was a movie. But we'll talk more about this when I get to my video of the first Alien. Then we put Aliens in the VHS, and by watching it, it feels like a very exciting expansion of everything you just saw in the first movie. Not only is a much more explosive experience, but also the stakes are higher. You get to know the characters much more. You actually get to identify and relate to Ripley and the characters around her, like Newt and Hicks. And I remember watching it and thinking, oh my god, I am in the moon. This movie, this universe is perfection. And again, everything culminates in an ending that just sends you home with a sense of epicness. I don't know, I am suspect to say my love for Aliens, but I think it's one of those movies that just makes you feel great for being alive and just watching this going, whoa, this is another movie, real movie. And then we finally come to Alien 3 and, well, I think we all know where this is going. Here's what makes everybody cries right away. They killed Newt and Hicks, the survivors of the second movie. Now we have only Ripley and a chunk of Bishop that doesn't even show very much in the story. Plus, the whole thing is so depressing, and the sense of expansion, of excitement, of discovering this creature of the alien and its evolution as an organism at the same time that you go deeper into this universe and its characters. This excitement is just non-existent in here. Alien 3 is what I like to call the Depressive Apocalypse. A movie that was done since its conception as a bookend to the whole series and a way to finally kill this character of Sigourney Weaver. And like I said, the whole thing is so sad and so moody and depressive that the energy that my brother had in renting these movies to watch them again decreased so much during the watching of this third movie that he actually decided to go out with his friends and tell me, "You stick around and watch it for me. It's okay, it's okay." So this is the experience I think everybody has with this franchise. You start with a discovery of a treasure, something that is so enigmatic and dark that is just too attractive to ignore. Then you go to a bang that multiplies these feelings all around. And then you come to this one that, just like most of the third movies in trilogies, in my opinion, they come to a point that there's not many new things to explore. Or at least, first two movies explored those elements so well that every new thing they try to do just comes out as some kind of repetition. It's almost like a relationship. Everything is very exciting at the beginning, then you get to know this person better, and you discover new things that makes you more excited. Then after that, everything becomes kind of repetitious and boring, and at the end, it just becomes toxic and surreal like the fourth movie. Right? Anyway, Alien 3 tells the story of Ripley falling on a planet called Fury 161, a prison planet. During the crash of the Sulaco ship, the one that was carrying the survivors of the second movie, Aliens, all of them died except for her. So Newt's gone, Hicks gone, only Ripley now and a bunch of prisoners, all of them bald because the installations have problems with lice for some reason. Oh, and by the way, the alien is back in an inexplicable way because somehow the alien queen from the previous movie left another egg at the carrier of Sulaco, even though she was never in the carrier that ejected from the Sulaco and crashed on the planet. Oh, and by the way, she must have left 2 eggs because there are 2 aliens. The alien that births from a dog that got face-hugged by one of the face-huggers of the eggs, and another one that is inside the replay that must have been from another face-hugger that got her during the journey of the Sulaco. And all of this is very poorly explained in a montage at the beginning of the movie, intersected with the credits. And after that, we see Ripley having to survive in this planet along with these dangerous criminals, until the company comes to rescue her and bring her back to their facilities. During this, she will get to know some of these prisoners better, a group of misfits that just pray for a god that probably forgot them in the end of the galaxy, and she will have to band with them to fight this new alien creature that has some different characteristics since it comes from a dog. All of this while having an alien queen inside herself. Anyway, Alien 3 is very famous for its fascinating troubled production. Probably one of the most troubled and difficult productions ever in the history of Hollywood. All starting with the first ideas to a sequel to Aliens. James Cameron left very clear that he wasn't interested in coming back to another sequel since he said that he already told everything he had to with Aliens, and I agree with him. So 20th Century Fox hired one first screenwriter to take on the project that was none other than the science fiction writer William Gibson, famous for writing books like Neuromancer. And his idea took place in this space station where an organization finally had the opportunity to mess with the creature alien and experiment with it. The characters Hicks and Newt were going to come back. In fact, the only character that was not coming back was Ripley, since she was in coma during the whole story, and that was a plot pointing to a fourth movie where she would come back and fight the aliens back with the characters. And the main characters would be Higgs and Bishop, that would band with another group of soldiers to fight the aliens that would break out in this space station. And this script was actually adapted to a comic book and an audio book, with some of the original actors playing the roles back, like Michael Biehn playing Higgs and Lance Henriksen playing Bishop. And I have to say that I don't like this story very much. Many people do, and they think this would be the best sequel to Aliens, but I don't think so. I don't like it very much. When you put the aliens on a base station filled with characters, you take out a little of the fear and the suspense and the whole idea of the creature in the darkness that the other movies had. Plus, there were some strange but interesting ideas like, for example, the alien biology mixing with technology and actually contaminating technology, which could be interesting. But also some stupid ideas like the alien not having a birth like the chest burst, but actually becoming one of the humans and ripping off its skin to transform into the creature. And come on, let's just not do that. So the producers of Aliens didn't like this idea very much. They actually thought it was very uninteresting, just like I did, and hired another guy called Eric Red to come up with a new script that, again, it wouldn't feature any of the previous characters, but it would feature a new guy called Sam Smith, a soldier that lived, again, in another space station, and, of course, the company was the owner of this space station, and they were also experimenting with the creature alien, creating many variations of the creature, like alien chickens, or alien ships, alien horses, whatever, I don't remember now. And at the end of the story, there was going to be this huge alien creature that had a body filled with other creatures combined to make it giant, just like a Megazord. I read this script in the past, and just like you are thinking, it's terrible. Even the writer Eric Red hated this script, and he said that it was just a cash grab for him. At the time, the producers had hired a first director that was Rennie Harlin, a director that I actually like. He made many fun action movies like Die Hard 2, Cliffhanger. He also did some horror movies like Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, one of the best in the franchise. And he was the one that was connected to these both interactions of the script that I just mentioned. And both were so bad, especially the last one, that he decided to give up on the project and move on to Die Hard 2. Then the studio hired David Twohy, the creator of the Riddick trilogy, a franchise that I like very much, and I have a video about the trilogy here in the channel if you want to watch it. And he was the first one to come up with this idea of prisoners in space with the alien. Once again, no characters from the previous movies, but I actually read his script as well, and I must say that it was pretty readable. I mean, it was fun to read actually. He had good dialogue, the characters were pretty well defined, although not great, and it was an okay story overall. But it was not something that would be in the same level of Alien and Aliens, actually pretty much far from it. But David Twohy actually got a bad deal with 20th Century Fox, because at this time the studio was trying to negotiate with Sigourney Weaver her return to the franchise, and she was asking for more and more money, which is pretty fair, I think, since she was the face of the franchise. And when they finally got her, they asked him to change the script and insert the character Ripley into the story. And I think this would have improved the story, but then the studio got so lost in the production, like for example, it looks like they had factions of producers working in different stages of the whole thing, that they hired another writer to come up with a new version of the story. Yes, this movie had so many versions of scripts that is quite unbelievable. So David Twohy decided to leave the project in very bad terms with the studio, and this is where comes Vincent Ward, a director that directed some very interesting and very, not strange, but not very commercial movies. And one of these movies that caught the attention of the studio was one called The Navigator, a medieval odyssey, that I recently watched, and is a very strange but also kinda fun concept in a movie. It's about these villagers in the 4th century of England that find a hole on the Earth, and this hole has a tunnel that takes them to a time travel odyssey straight to the 20th century, in our current times, and they use this tunnel to escape from the plague in their own village in the past. So it's a very fun idea and actually a very well shot movie, and I think when the studio saw it, they had the same concept of when they hired Ridley Scott for the first Alien. He directed a movie called The Duelists that has nothing to do with science fiction, but is very beautiful and visually stunning in terms of photography. So they decided to hire Vincent Ward not only as a new screenwriter, but as the new director of Alien 3. And he came up with probably the most out-of-the-box idea, and also one of the movies that somehow people wish they could have seen, at least I do, which was about these religious monks on space. They lived in this huge planet station that was made of wood. Exactly, wood. And they were totally against any technology. That's why they decided to live far away from any other planet in this station, using the most rudimentary tools to survive. They also had these artificial camps and corn plantations with sheep and other animals. And this is where Ripley comes into the story, where she crashes on the Sulaco ship on the top of the planet and gets rescued by these monks. And just like the version of Alien 3 that we all know, she bands with the monks to hunt the new alien that is killing everybody. I also read this script and I thought it was okay, although it had the same problems that Alien 3 has. They killed Newt and Hicks. And this demise of these two dear characters is so shocking that we don't really want to know anything about other characters or relate to new characters that the story brings to us. And finally we get to Alien 3 because the studio was so nervous about the ideas of Vincent Ward's script that they decided to change elements until it became what we know today with prisoners in space, a bald Ripley with an alien queen on her chest, and a dog alien. Oh, and I cannot forget, Vincent Ward was obviously fired, and they hired, finally, David Fincher, the guy who, until today, hates this movie more than anybody else, like himself says. And according to the reports of the documentaries and other videos in YouTube that covers the whole problematic history of the production of Alien 3, he was really tortured by the studio in terms of them shoving ideas to him and telling him what to do, because after all, he was an initiate at the time. It was his first feature movie. David Fincher came from music videos in the past, and great music videos with a very single and interesting vision with amazing visuals. And even with all these problems, and again, this is a production that had so many ideas shoved and turned and twisted during so many years that even had a trailer that was done before any script or anything was actually created, promising that the story of Alien 3 would take place on Earth, with the xenomorphs finally arriving on Earth, believe it or not. And even with all these problems, David Fincher was able to come up with something respectable. Like I said in the beginning, and I think the impression is that I hate this movie. In fact, I don't. If I have to consider in the whole mythology of Alien that I like to believe that exists in my mind, I disconsider this one and the fourth one. But sometimes I go back to this one with the will of watching it just to find its merits, or watch it for what it tried to be. It definitely is a turn off from the boner that we had with Aliens, but if you look from its point of view, that's the whole point. It feels like the end of a story that takes place in the end of the galaxy, in an apocalyptic setting, a place where all the characters are lost and without hope, only grabbing into the little faith they had in a god that ignores them. So it kind of has these religious themes that is a good counterpoint to the first two movies. And this brings an interesting experience anyway, although it is very depressing. Actually, it feels like this story takes place in hell, like in the end of all things, because the photography really hammers this idea in our minds with these tones of red, orange, brown. So yes, these ideas really work in terms of a new story in this franchise. The characters, although you can't relate with them, even Ripley, I think you cannot relate very well in this movie, but the characters are not badly written. In fact, the most important characters like Clemens, the doctor that Ripley hooks up, which I hate this idea, but okay, and Dylan, that is kind of the partner of Ripley in the movie and the leader of the prisoners in terms of their religion. They're good characters in my opinion. Of course, we still feel orphans of Hicks and Newt being dead. In fact, if I could have written Alien 3, my fan idea would have Newt and Hicks still alive and stuck with Ripley in this planet. I think it would make the stakes very high with Newt a child amongst these very dangerous criminals with Ripley having to protect her. And also I would substitute the character of Clemens, the doctor, for Hicks. Because if Ripley has to hook up with somebody, it would be very nice if she had hooked up with him, since their relationship was already established in the previous movie. Plus, if we have Hicks replacing the character Clemens and dying at the same point of the movie that the Clemens dies, it would be very interesting to cause the real shock in the audience to have a character like him dying like that and making things even harder for Ripley during the rest of the movie. So instead of having this numbing idea of them dying right in the beginning, we would have them actually taking part of the story and making it more interesting, probably, I don't know. About the creature alien in this movie, well, it's tricky. I really love the idea that the xenomorph is a creature that takes the characteristics of its host. It actually makes us wonder about what possibilities this creature have in terms of if it borns from another animal like a bird or a lion or a huge rhino, I don't know. All these ideas that were used in the action figures in the 80s. But having the creature coming from a dog is very underwhelming. Actually, it comes or from a dog or from an ox, depending on the version of the movie you watch, both of them which I don't like. It is a little cool the fact that it's a faster creature because it comes from this quadruped animal, but somehow, even though they try very hard, the alien here is not very scary. They are able to make some very good scenes with it, especially the iconic scene where the alien comes very close to Ripley's face, which made the poster of the movie, and it's a very enigmatic image to have in your promotion, especially in the trailers, because makes the audience wonder what's gonna happen with Ripley. She's going to die? And then to find in the movie that there is a very good reason behind it, that is the alien not wanting to kill her because she has one of his own inside her. All of these are good ideas, but the creature itself is just not scary, especially because of some visual effects that they use in it that kind of blew it. And like I said, Alien 3 has two versions, the theatrical one and the extended version that came in the Blu-ray some years later. The theatrical has the dog version and the extended the ox version. But even though they are very different and has some great changes in the whole pace and moods of the movie, it still is the same story and goes to the same place. I think there are some better developments in some characters, especially one called Golek, that is this guy that somehow starts to feel very acquainted to the alien and wants to help the alien kill the other guys, which is a very cool idea, but I don't think it's very well developed in the story. In my opinion, the extended is better and is the one I like to watch every time. And finally, let's talk about the character Ripley, because like I said, she is good, Sigourney Weaver is good in this movie, but it feels like we don't relate so much with her here. I also don't think she was very relatable in the first Alien. In fact, none of the characters of the first Alien are very relatable. I will explain this better in my video about that movie, but Aliens really made us be fond of her and really love her as a character. And here, it just feels like she's distant. We don't really know her anymore, especially when she hooks up with the doctor out of nowhere. But there are moments she is good. Sigourney Weaver somehow still manages to deliver a great performance in the character, or a solid one at least. And that's the end when she dies. I'm sorry, spoilers of a movie from 30 years ago. It definitely feels like we lost somebody that was very dear to us. Mostly because of the first two movies, of course, but still it makes us sad. It's the same feeling of Logan, for example. It feels very weird that we spend so much time with this fictional character and we finally watched him or her die. It's really depressing. So I think movies that try to do this, they are bold, although it makes us feel so, I don't know, empty, like we actually lost someone in our lives. It's not something that I like to see with characters that we enjoy and want to see more adventures of, but I congratulate movies that try to do it in a valuable way. And here the fact that she does it to extinguish this creature forever, it's very honest with her own character. So, and this is it, Alien 3, guys, a movie that is very flawed, that some days I don't like, but some days I feel curious to watch it again. It's like that problematic kid that you have. It has so many problems, it gives you a headache, but at the same time, it still is your son. But good news ahead, because we're gonna cover Aliens and Alien in the next videos. And I already covered Alien Resurrection if you wanna watch the video here. And I'm not gonna cover Prometheus or Alien Covenant or Alien vs Predator because I just don't want. All of this coverage is until we finally have Alien Romulus in August. And let's keep fingers crossed so that this one can be at least respectable and a good entry in the franchise. Alright? Thank you very much. If you like the content of Trashing with Gus, please subscribe to the channel. And see you in the next trashing video. Bye bye.